Hello everybody, we are from UT Arlington, class from Metabolism Regulation. We are performing our service learning project, and our presenters for today will be...
Hi, my name is Fatima Zakir Hussein. I'm an anthropology major.
My name is Aijo and I'm a chemistry major.
My name is Marissa. My major is biological chemistry.
And lastly, my name is Hobin, and I am a biological chemistry major as well. And our topic for today will be the long-term effects of Atkins diet. Is it appropriate to be used as a diet plan?
So basically, for a balanced diet, you have some protein, fat, and carbohydrate. That's glucose that you use and balance to eat every day. So a balanced diet is mostly carbohydrate because you have the glucose that's the main source of energy of the brain. So how is glucose metabolized? Like when you eat the carbohydrate, it's gonna be decomposed into glucose. Then the insulin take the glucose into your blood, your cells, and you produce energy through the glucose. So there's three types of carbohydrate. You have the sugar, that's the glucose in small molecule, and you have starch and fiber, that's glucose in that's many glucose molecule that's branched in the different and more complex way. So starch is fine in the bread, like the starch is gonna be decomposed to give you the glucose, and the fiber you cannot digest it, but it's still some type of glucose that you're gonna have into your body.
So what is exactly the Atkins diet? Well, it is also known as the ketogenesis diet or ketokin diet. So there's many terms, but when William Banting claimed that he lost around 46 pounds without feeling hunger, this is when the initial starting point of many low carbohydrate diet books followed, such as Dr. Atkins' New Diet Revolution, developed in the 1960s. So this book was very appealing to the general population. We're seeing around 20 million people worldwide, and that's when the name Atkins Diet came from. So a little bit more about Atkins Diet. You see this delicious meat that you see in front of us, or basically you don't really need to care about your calories. You're still able to enjoy your red meat and high fat content. Really, that brings your appetite and your saliva operating. And because you don't have to, that's why it was so appealing to the population currently. So as I mentioned previously, this is a very hot topic. This is a very useful diet, or very well utilized diet. And a little bit more about how this Atkins diet works is that you are restricting the carbohydrates, which is the sugar that Aijo previously talked about, while emphasizing your protein and fat content. And if you look at the right side of the slide, you are able to see the phase diagram, and the blue shows that is how much carbohydrates intaking relative to the fat or protein that it is. So because of the absence or this low amount of carbohydrate present in your body is kind of forcing to use and break down fat as an energy source in the So you're not allowed to permit more than 5 to 10 per calorie intake of the carbohydrate to initiate your body process for doing this. So as fat is used as an fat is used and broke down, this produces many products such as acetoacetate, beta hydroxybutyrate, and which will be shown in the next slide. And this will be used as an alternative energy source. That's how the body is recognized during the Atkins diet. So the fat brings the acetyl-CoA, and then it's a precursor of the HMG-CoA, also known as beta-hydroxy beta-methyl-gluto-CoA. You don't really need to know that, but just know that it's a precursor, and then makes a product of the ketone bodies, as I mentioned previously, which is the acetone, acetoacetate, and 2-hydroxybutyrate, also also known as, all these are ketone bodies, where these are the products that are generated during the keto or Atkins diet. Yep. So a little bit more metabolism-wise, you were able to see that in normal human beings, it promotes ketone body synthesis in the absence of carbohydrates, and it promotes a fancy term called lipolysis, which is lipo, fat, and lysis, the breakdown of fat. And it is such a useful concept because people who we will talk about how the public health for later, but you're still able to break down fat by indulging all the fat that you are all the food that you are enjoying. However, during the Atkins diet, it is important that to know that it inhibits a process called glycogenolysis. Glycogen is the synthesis of glycogen. Genolysis is the synthesis, in simple terms, it is your body no longer goes into a storing process. And these are the main pathways that are utilized during an Atkins diet. And that's pretty much it. So furthermore, how our body reacts to this is that it is important that our body reacts that when during an alert state of our stage. This is when ketogenesis is occurring, where in the absence of carbohydrates. So it is important to note that our body is able to communicate this by a hormone called insulin. Where especially whenever you're in urgent conditions like fasting, you are needed such alternative energy, especially for your brain. Unlike other organs in your body, the brain requires an absolute minimum requirement of glucose. So through the absence of the hormone communication, your body undergoes the previous, the ketone body synthesis and the lipolysis, and your body it is able to tell your body to do so through a protein called insulin. And further on, we're gonna talk about more of the products of ketone bodies. It actually suppresses appetite, and it actually mimics the anorexia of starvation. So it mimics anorexia, where you are in the state, these high fat, high protein, mimics that you're full, and it makes you feel less hungry, and this is another point why it is so popular nowadays, because you are reducing calories as well through this feelingness, or this level of hormones activating or deactivating that control your appetite, and you are synthesizing less fat or decreasing it, and more fats are burned, and that's why this is so popular right now.
So as Hoban mentioned, Atkins Diet is really popular right now, and one of the reasons is starting in the 1960s, obesity and obesity has been increasing and has become a serious issue, especially in the United States. And currently, 2 out of 3 adults are either overweight or obese. So that's why there's a more need for the Atkins diet to lose this weight.
So overall, changing on how you eat really changes how your body reacts, and that's what the Atkins diet utilizes, is that deceiving your body that your body is in an alerted state. With the absence of glucose and the absence of insulin, your body is breaking down the fat, and that is how the Atkins diet is utilizing, really telling our body that you are in an alert state.
So Atkins Diet is used for treatment for a lot of different diseases such as epilepsy in the 1920s and in the 1960s for obesity, as mentioned earlier. What is epilepsy? It's a neurological disorder in which the brain activity becomes abnormal, and somebody with epilepsy will have frequent seizures, periods of unusual behavior, sensations, and sometimes loss of awareness. In children, it occurs due to the mutation of GLUT1, which transports glucose across the blood to brain barrier.
So a illustration of how epilepsy is, you know that information goes through the neuron, right? And it's by electricity, some type of electricity, that the information goes from one neuron to another. So in epilepsy, you have this disturbance that a lot of electricity is produced and transmitted throughout the body. So that creates some seizure, and the person is, you observe the seizure in epilepsy patient. So if you don't bring the glucose that's gonna be transported and create this seizure, then you're gonna decrease the epilepsy symptom in children. And also another hypothesis of how the keto diet is used to treat epilepsy is that the keto diet, the ketone body that's gonna be produced when you stop consuming the glucose is gonna decrease the conversion and decrease the neuronal excitability. So the actual mechanism of action of the ketone bodies as anticonvulsant is not really known, but it has been proven by studies that children with low carb diet have a relief of seizure. So, also the effect of cholesterol, of keto diet on cholesterol is that when you don't consume glucose, you don't have insulin, because insulin is supposed to take the glucose into your cells. So you don't have insulin, and the insulin is used as it activates one enzyme, that's HMG-CoA, that is used for the treatment of that used for synthesis of cholesterol. So if you don't have insulin, then the HMG-CoA is not stimulated, and you don't produce cholesterol from your body. So that's helping in the metabolism of cholesterol in your body. And also it's gonna increase the level of HDL, that's the good cholesterol. Because you know you have two types of cholesterol in your body, the good and the bad cholesterol. So the good cholesterol is taking the cholesterol from your cells to go to the liver so that it can be excreted. So when you eat a lot of fat, you have the increase of this HDL. We were kind of surprised because you always hear that if you eat a lot of fat, you have the increase of cholesterol, and it's not good for you. But in this study, they show that when you eat the fat but you decrease the carb, that's gonna induce the production of cholesterol. That's contrary to what you would believe. That's gonna be good for your body. And another effect is also the positive level of blood triglyceride. So triglyceride is some type of alcohol that is used to store fat. So when you burn all those fat, the level of triglyceride is gonna be decreased from your body.
Okay, so I'm going to talk about the short-term effects on mood and cognitive ability. So Hoban earlier had touched on like how it affects your mood and how it affects your hunger, but I'm just going to talk on short-term. So basically, short-term is headache, irritability, dehydration, nausea. Those are the confusion. Those are the major short-term side effects. And so on this next slide, I just wanted to show everybody, this is my bunny girl, Bonnie. So basically, my diet, when I first adopted her, she used to be on starchy-based rabbit pellets, which in the long term is really not good for her because she had issues with gaining a little bit too much weight. Her stools weren't as firm as they should be. Just her digestive system wasn't working as fast as it should. So I took her to the vet, and the vet basically told me to give her a diet of hay only. So that's pretty much me putting her on a keto diet. And as you can see here, she's, like for the first few days, she was really grumpy, biting me every day, just growling at me and all of that. But eventually, she did feel better, and her mood was better, her weight was better, and the vet just noticed a total 180. Okay, so basically the reason why your mood suffers short term and your cognitive ability suffers short term is because there is a imbalance of serotonin in your brain. So serotonin is a neurotransmitter that helps signaling in your brain from one area to another. As you can see on this diagram, the serotonin is, again, mainly responsible for mood and for memory and for sleep and cognition as far as being able to absorb information, just carrying out your basic daily routines. So basically there are, as far as serotonin goes, researchers have pinpointed a link between serotonin imbalance and depression or anxiety, obsessive compulsive disorder. Okay, so basically what the average American, their diet is higher in carbs and possibly processed food. So when you eat processed food, salty, sweet, starchy, it does increase your serotonin, therefore it makes you feel full and satiated and satisfied. However, when you first get on the keto diet, it's low carbs and high protein. So you can literally eat a whole steak and you don't feel full because in your mind, like the serotonin is imbalanced, so it's not producing, so you're not feeling satisfied. However, long term, if you stay on the diet for at least 3 weeks, because usually it takes 3 weeks for your body to get adjusted, then you will notice better mood, and all of that, and then less depression and anxiety. Okay, so basically, Oxford University did a study. They took 93 participants who are overweight or obese, divided them, randomly selected them to be on a low carbohydrate weight loss diet and a high carbohydrate weight loss diet. So basically, these are both where calories are monitored, so they're both healthier diets than what they currently have right now. So in the very first week, not too significant changes in mood between the low carb and the high carb subjects. But by week 8, which would be 2 months into the experiment, it was concluded that even though wasn't any significant mood changes between the low carb or the high carb diet, there was a better mood change in participants who also exercise, as opposed to leading a sedentary lifestyle and just doing the diet. So the take-home message here is, not only is diet important for weight loss and for better mood and cognition, you also have to be physically active.
So now kind of touching on the long-term effects, a study showed that 15% that you were at a risk of 15% more mortality rates, 13% higher risk of cardiovascular disease, and 8% higher risk of cancer. One of the reasons for this was because you were ingesting more animal products versus plant products.
Yeah, as in previous slides, we discussed on how changing and eating changes on how our body reacts. In the heart, she mentioned, Fatima mentioned about cardiovascular disease. Actually, it also might pose a risk of cardiac arrhythmias, which is abnormal heartbeat, and more broader spectrum is there's increase of risk factors of blood clotting diseases, and as we mentioned earlier, like the short terms also like long term wise, the headaches or constipation can be done by the reduced intake of really natural sugar from fruits and vegetables, which also has sugar in like whole grain bread and cereal, and with long term nutritional adequacy. This is the diseases that might pose with extra muscle cramps, diarrhea, and rashes reported from studies.
So in this slide, we summarizing a little bit what the keto diet is. So in the first phase, you're gonna decrease the glucose. So you're gonna go through the phase of depression that Marisa was describing. Basically, it's like you were used to get your food like uh, 5 feet from your house, and now you're telling your body that you have to go 1 mile away to get another source of energy. So during this phase, you're gonna have some type of imbalance, and after that, the second phase, you're gonna have you shift your energy source from the glucose to the ketone bodies, and then the third phase, the because you're using the fat, then you're gonna have your fat broken down, and in the fourth phase, you're gonna have some type of glucose that's gonna be produced not from the carbohydrate that you eat, but also from other side source like proteins and fats. And the fifth phase, you get used to the ketone body and you start to feel better about the ketone diet.
So there's some studies also further on that Dr. Hyde recommends taking a thoughtful approach to carb consumption, no matter how many you eat. Quote, I would include carbohydrates as part of every meal, she says. Just choose whole grain, high fiber carbohydrates such as black beans, fruit, quinoa, and whole grains. Not necessarily it has to be white bread, pasta, and cookies.
So in conclusion, we also want to mention that we were talking about different studies, some that were showing good effect of the ketone diet, some that was showing like some bad effect. So what we can say after working on this is that we have different genetic susceptibility, and everybody should evaluate the effect of keto diet on himself before starting to think about a long-term keto diet. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
And lastly, this is our reference.
And we want to thank you for watching this video, and we also want to thank the University of Texas and Dr. Mendel that was the one that gave us the idea to go and talk about our class.